Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka blenderhd, blenderhd. You can follow me there on Twitter. This is the show where we would normally go over yesterday's slate. This is a short 3-game NBA slate. And talk a little bit about today's slate. Normally we do that. It's an 11-game slate. Who knows what's going to happen? But it's Mondays, so you know what happens on Mondays. It's Mondays with McCool. James McCool joining me, co-author with me on the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. You can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. We got the chat room here. Max Coach 1, Jupocalypse, Card Fan, D-Bills. You know what to do. Hit that thumbs up button to keep my apple juice cold. All right, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to know when we go live. And you got to give an extra special hit on the thumbs up button today because it's my birthday, right? It's my birthday today, right? What did you guys get me? Nothing, of course. You don't care, right? Get me more grief and stupid questions. That's what you people are getting me. James, you didn't get me anything, right? No one gets me anything. No, nor do I want anything. So I'm complaining about not getting anything, nor did I care. As long as everyone leaves me alone, I'm fine, right? That's typically what I want on my birthday.
I didn't know that it was your birthday, but my
wife asked me, "What do you want?" I just want peace and quiet.
Yeah, well, I would have gotten you something. I would have gotten you like a hat or like an apple juice container that has a name like Perseus on it, because that would have been
Percival.
Sorry, I forgot. I'm not good with names. Anyway, My joke is ruined, but happy birthday anyway, man.
Okay, I'm 42. People don't think people think I'm way older than I am. Do I look like I'm 60?
So not 60, but I mean a life of going to like metal shows and playing poker and playing DFS probably ages you a little bit.
Do I look that old?
I look like I'm older than I am, and that's my background.
Right, you look like you're in your mid 30s.
Yeah, I'm not.
But you're like 27 or something.
Yeah, I'm 28. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm 42. Do I look? I don't know.
Without the hat on, you look 42.
Right.
When you have the hat on, you look older. When I have my hat off, I look older. Right? Because I'm just bald as hell.
Right. So I look younger when you can see that I actually have hair.
You look younger when you take the hat off. I look older when I take the hat off. So that's the dynamic here.
Okay. So that's what I need to do. In order to convince people I'm younger, I need to take my hat off more.
And wear sunglasses.
Oh, wear sunglasses. What would
everybody looks younger with sunglasses on? Well, I mean, you'll look blind, but you'll look younger. You look like a younger blind person. You might look like a 35-year-old blind person.
That's the question. Does it even matter to me?
I don't know.
It just seems like it's because when you're in your 20s, like if you're an 18-year-old kid, if you're 22. Someone that's like 45 looks like they're really old.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of times you can't judge, and it's like, oh, they could be 45, they could be 60. I don't know. Right. But then when you're in the 40s, it's like you could properly judge. You can probably judge people in that age range. But then when you get to the younger people, you're like, is that woman 22 or 16? You're like, you're not that. Then you start getting on the other side of like, you can't tell the difference between like, she's hot. It's like, Jordan, she's 15. It's like, that's a 15-year-old now? What the hell? It's the other way around.
But, I blame Forever 21, I think. But regardless, like when you're younger, it's funny. When you're like 12, 13 years old, you look at like 25, 26-year-olds, and you're like, oh man, they're adults.
Right.
And then when you're like 25, 26, you look at somebody who's like 45, 50, and you're like, oh man, they're adults. Because like you never actually feel like an adult, I think, until you're like probably 40. Like, do you feel like
No, you don't. You never feel like an adult. You never feel like it. I'm 42 years old. I feel like I'm 24 mentally. Mentally, I feel like the same I did when I was 24. Now, physically, I feel like I'm 78, but that's what ends up happening. When you get into your 40s, all of a sudden it's like, why does my shoulder hurt? Why do I feel like taking a nap in the middle of the day? Right?
That's me at 28.
Okay, everything so good. Hurts. You got a head start already.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I absolutely feel like I'm like 55, but I blame football for that. Like, Too many years of contact sports.
Down because of physical. Can we? I'm gonna make the call, James.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect to make it. I expected it to make it early this season. I didn't expect it to make it this early this season. I'm done with NBA DFS.
Oh yeah,
I'm done. Like I got the spreadsheet. I will be playing once in a while, but I'm just saying the playing like every day, the spreadsheet with the cash games and the 3 sites and everything. I mean, I'll still record if I play, but it's not going to be every day. And I'm putting it in. I'm $20,789 over the course of what? 3 months? We made it 3 months. What? 3 months is a little over 100% return. Of course, most of it is on FanDuel. So if I knew beforehand, I would have invested. I would just said, screw it. I'm just playing the whole thing on FanDuel. But you don't know. So that's why you split it amongst everything. Then you start leading it more towards where you're winning more. I'm going to attribute it to just the FanDuel user base is just weaker, I guess. That's the only way that I can attribute
contest
it.
selection too. You get to play the lower dollar games over on FanDuel.
Right. But I mean, that doesn't account for like all of the money there.
No.
Like then that's not all of it. It's just that the pricing is softer. When you make a mistake in cash on FanDuel, you're heavily punished.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm going to attribute it to. But as far as like playing every day, like NBA, I'm done. I did not play on Saturday, James. I played MMA, which maybe I should have played NBA. I lost in MMA also. Although Ngannou's knockout actually made me not lose like 80% of my money. It only made me lose 30% of my money. But I saw what happened. I already looked at it, and I just looked at it and I said, I just don't feel like entering any contest. Whatever happens at tonight, I'm going to need my Lanta, and I just don't want to deal with it anymore.
Yeah. Saturday, I think I've been playing DFS for like quite a while now. Saturday was probably the worst slate I've ever seen in terms of like late scratches and unheard of news and team sitting and just like absolute it was the worst slate that I think I've ever seen. The Milwaukee Bucks, if you did not pay attention on Saturday, the Milwaukee Bucks ruled out, without them being on the injury report, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Dante DiVincenzo, Bobby Portis, and PJ Tucker. Like they literally ruled out 7 players that are main parts of their rotations. They only had 8 players remaining. 3 of those players, I didn't even know who they were. Like I literally did not know who they were. Jordan and I were talking before the show started. I know the main roster and the vast majority of the backups for every team in MLB, NBA, NHL, League of Legends, Counter-Strike. Like there's like 6 sports that I can just spout out any player that might play a game. And I didn't know the names of like a handful of players, like 5 players on that Saturday slate that ended up playing meaningful minutes between Milwaukee and Orlando. So that was like the most tilting slate I think that I've ever dealt with.
Then we also had the Knicks. Didn't the Knicks sit?
Oh yeah, the Knicks sat Julius Randle. They didn't have Mitchell Robinson. They sat somebody else too. It was Derrick Rose. Like they didn't have Derrick Rose. He was out for conditioning. Like these teams aren't even trying to play notable rosters anymore. And I had a couple questions in
Luka after lock. Luka and Porzingis were out.
Oh yeah, and then Luka and Porzingis were out too. Yeah, it just and then Sunday comes around and I'm like, okay, 3-game slate. I didn't have to make any changes through the day. It comes up to an hour before lock. I am hitting the upload button on my projections. Like I am uploading the optimizer onto the site. Kyle Lowry gets ruled out, not on the injury report 45 minutes earlier. And I just go and I just lay on my floor in my office, like stare at the ceiling. It just is insane, man. That there's nothing that you can do, right? Like as a content creator, Jordan, you as a player, like as a specific player, you have it hard enough trying to react to all of that news and just wait for somebody to magically put together a rotation and like a minutes projection.
Right. I'm waiting for you. Like I'm
Yeah,
waiting for someone like you to
waiting.
tell me what the number should be.
Right. And then there's me, who's just like, I don't know who most of these players even are. And there's teams that have traded away main pieces of their rosters. And so now they have different pieces of their roster that I don't even know what they're going to do. Like the Orlando situation yesterday on Sunday, they pulled in a whole bunch of vets and they traded away their best players. And so now you literally have an entire team of dudes that don't matter. So like, how do you project that? It's so hard now. And like, I've been pretty much done with the season for about 2 weeks now. I have been playing sparsely, and if I do play, it's super low volume. Like I'm not even touching the $100 contest at this point. But at this point now, after what happened with the Bucks on Saturday, done. Calling it. Don't care. I'm just working on my baseball stuff, and I'll be ready for Thursday. Baseball is like huge, giant open carrot over NBA. Just NBA can leave.
I mean, but we even had the situations. What? Michael Carter-Williams gets ruled out and then plays. Right? He gets ruled out, and then Michael Carter-Williams has entered the game in the second quarter. And like, didn't they have to dress Terrence Ross being injured on the bench just to sit him there?
Yeah.
Because Carter-Williams got sick before the game.
And then played.
Then he gets a reverse scratch. So and then yesterday he starts and then gets injured for the second half. So now that he does play, now he's out for the second. I know there's edge. Like what I'm saying isn't reasonable from a if you want to make money perspective. If you're good at NBA DFS, you should want all of this chaos because skillful players are gonna triumph in those environments. It's a pain in the ass. It's gonna be and then you have baseball on top of it.
Yeah.
Now MLB is much easier because there's no chaos. But
well,
I mean, we're gonna have locks. We're gonna have locks most nights at the same time. And like, do I want to focus my time on my baseball lineups, or do I want to focus my time on being on high alert for whole teams to sit after lock 9 o'clock? Okay, we don't feel like playing anymore. Just like no, we're throwing out all the G Leaguers, and you're like, I don't even know who these guys are.
Yeah.
And then you have to project them. Is this guy going to start and play 36 minutes, or he's going to start and play 12 minutes? Who knows? Who knows how many minutes these guys are going to play and what they're going to do? So there is edge. How much volume do I want to put into that edge that I don't know. I mean, we already see in the lobbies that the lobbies are getting smaller, especially in cash games. The head-to-head lobbies are dead unless you want to play sharp players.
Which you don't.
So it's like how much so if the volume is going down there, I know Jupocalypse says in the chat, I'm hoping there will be slightly more of an edge with all you sharp guys in here shifting to MLB. You're still gonna have plenty of sharp players, and I mean we're not gonna be gone. Wow, 2 guys. Wow, you got bye.
So the last month of every single sport, you're basically only playing sharp players. Like nearly all of the casual players have left. Like it's not just me and Jordan. They're just like, screw this. NBA is ridiculous. Like the casual players, like the quote unquote easier money has left and is gone. Like
they're gone by the All-Star break even. I mean, like
they're gone by the All-Star break.
It starts at the beginning of the season and dips lower. So that's why to me that if I want to find the easier money, it would be in the first month of the baseball season.
Yeah, exactly. And so like if you're saying that you think that things are going to be a little bit easier with guys like me and Jordan getting out of the pools, like, nah, man, like you still got to deal with all the guys who have super sophisticated algorithms. And like, you're not going to be getting the more casual players. You're not going to be getting the easier money. That easier money is going on to the next sport. It's going on to baseball. So like, if you want to be going after the easier money, you should be getting prepped up for baseball and you should be getting ready for baseball because that's where it's going to be. The last month of every single main sport, the last month of NFL, NBA, and MLB, all of the casual money is gone. And you're just dealing with it.
I mean, you can't use a term like all.
Okay, fine. A lot of the easier money is gone. And you're dealing with the guys who do this for a living. You're doing this against now the actual like good pro grinders that are going to be there regardless. Because like this is their it's what they do. So it gets I usually tell people to lower their volume the last month of the season. Just because It's just the edge is less.
Right, and I would consider doing it, just that I'm the type of person that I can't do four things at once. I just like if we're gonna have double locks, it's like I'd rather focus and play one sport well than do multiple sports at once. Because even on Saturday, like I could have played MMA lineups. There's no late swap in MMA. I could have just done that and been fine, and then do NBA and then pull my hair out. It's like, no, I just want to. It's a Saturday night. I'll order UFC 260 and I'll watch it. Yes, and I order it because I find it laughable, a little laughable that people that'll play like $10,000 worth of volume in MMA contests
and look for a stream.
Then look for free streams. It's like, dude, pay the $70. I mean,
yeah, well, it's one of my favorite lines in the Fast and the Furious movies is, I don't know, it's in one of the more recent ones, and he goes over and he's like, it was after they had this like huge heist and they're all millionaires and blah, blah, blah. They're like riding on yachts or whatever they're doing. And one of the dudes goes up to one of the other guys and says, "Hey, can I borrow $1 for the vending machine?" He's like, "You're a millionaire and you're asking me for $1?" He's like, "That's how you stay a millionaire." So I guess that's the thought on not paying the $70 for the pay-per-view.
Right. Never use your own money.
Yeah.
Right.
Use somebody else's money.
You borrow.
Yep.
So MLB coming up this week,
Yep.
Thursday.
Yep.
Being you're a model maker. What are you prepping for? I think I want to talk a little bit about. I mean, you'll talk about your preparation, but I also want to talk that FanDuel has changed. What are your thoughts on FanDuel's new change that they're adding MPE? And FanDuel already, we're used to basketball with FanDuel being like very distinct. Like there's no MPE and it's 2-2-2-2-1. You're done in basketball. And same in football, right? In football, it's like you got one utility and you're done. In MLB, Draftkings is the one that's, even though they have MPE, there's no utility position. So like FanDuel is on top, on Draftkings, you have to roster a catcher. And catcher always sucks pretty much. On FanDuel, it's catcher / first base. Obviously, they have the single pitcher, so that's a big difference. But they have a catcher first base slot, so you don't have to roster a catcher. They have a utility spot, which means you could roster 2 third basemen if you want, 4 outfielders. We can't do that on DK. But now they're adding multiple positional eligibility. So how much of an effect do you think the MPE is going to be on FanDuel?
Huge. It's massive. I mean, like, even if it's just 2 positions, because they have the utility spot and because they have already the catcher first base spot, now players are going to be able to fit into multiple spots.
They're going to be able to fit into more spots than you could fit in on DraftKings because of the utility.
Right.
Because it's not just like typically on FanDuel, we'll have like the shortstop. It'll be like, do you play Tatis? Do you play Lindor? Do you play Bogarts or something? And like, you could only play like 1 at shortstop, but now you could, with the utility, you could play 2. Mm-hmm. But now if they give multiple positional eligibility to a bunch of people, it's possible you could play 3. I mean, like maybe not those 3 specifically, because they probably won't have, like, those guys don't play multiple positions, but I mean, but it will be in positions where you're going to be able to play like these first base outfielder types, right? Like a Bellinger or I have to remember who's in the league. I don't know. When it comes to MLB preparation, James, you know what I do? I wait until Thursday morning. Then I figure out, oh, this guy's on that team now. I remembered like the big trades over and the big free agent signings over the summer, over the off season or whatever. But then just like I take a look at these starting lineups and batting orders and go, oh, that guy's on that team. So so obviously my preparation is very limited, but I prepare strategically. So like the FanDuel multiple position eligibility is the main difference now is that you're going to be able to stack in like 30 to 40% more ways than you were before.
Yeah, I mean it's a combinatorics problem, right? Like where now the combinations that you can make on FanDuel have increased by orders of magnitude because of MPE. So
is that a good thing or a bad thing? Or is that a good thing or a bad thing for skillful players?
So I had the discussion with Dean, right, on Twitter, where he thinks that it is a little bit better just because of the stacking aspect, where it does make it so that you can stack a little bit easier. Like, you're not going to be quite as restricted on FanDuel with the way that you need to build your stacks. You're not going to be kind of like forced into playing like a bad player from a team that you want to stack just because they fit into the second base spot. Like, a problem with Boston last year was their second base spot sucked a lot of the year. And if you want to stack Boston, you had to take a bad player. But now you're not going to have to deal with that. The problem is that at this point, mathematically, the differences in the way that you build on FanDuel, it's going to be so hard to mathematically create a script in MME that makes more sense and does a good job of getting you the exposures that you want on FanDuel. MPE makes it really, really, really difficult, I think, for skillful players to have an edge over casual players.
I think no, it's the opposite.
Oh, I think that it's harder. I think it's harder because I think that it makes it so that like the mistakes that you make are punished less. Like, we talk about that a lot, but I think that when you have a lot more options in the way that you can build out a roster, specifically with MPE, I think that it makes it so that there are more outs, and I think that it makes it harder to take down tournaments. Like FanDuel, the reason why I like FanDuel, I hate the site. I refuse to play there. But the reason why I like FanDuel in terms of NBA is because you have to have the top, like a top.
More likely to need.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot more outs for players that maybe are a little bit less perfect.
Yeah, but that benefits skillful players.
But I think it increases randomness. And I don't like that.
I think it's the opposite way. I think you should be viewing it the complete opposite way. You get punished more by having MP. If we have two shortstops that are good values or something like that, and you get punished by not playing both of them. It's the same thing in DK. If you have two centers, if you have power forward center eligible value and a center value and another, like, you're gonna play three of them. Weaker players and bad players tend to not do that. So the multiple positional eligibility like amplifies mistakes. Now with the large field GPPs you're talking about, like, you're going to need a higher scoring lineup because, for instance, because we're going to now mention DraftKings now, because I would mostly play GPPs on DraftKings. So you have to think on DraftKings. Let's say you have Freddie Freeman and you see Paul Goldschmidt hit a home run. Well, Goldschmidt only fits in the first base spot. Freddie Freeman only fits in the first base spot.
So you know that Freddie Freeman now needs to hit a home run.
Right. Now, if Freddie Freeman hits a home run and Goldschmidt has a home run, can anyone have Freeman and Goldschmidt in the lineup together? No. So what other first basemen do don't matter, right? Unless obviously they're first base / outfield, unless they're eligible at some other position. But so if you get the highest, like the catcher, that's a perfect example. The catcher is always the best example because catchers typically don't do much. So if you're sitting there with a 6-point catcher and it's like, has any catcher gone off? Like had more than a home run? Because even a 14-pointer you could overcome if you have 6 and it's an 8-point difference. But you have a catcher that puts up 3 home runs, it's like you're going to need him, right? Because, and they only fit a catcher and you have to roster a catcher. If in outfield, in large field GPPs, a lot of times you're going to need at least 2 of the highest scoring outfielders on the slate, but no one can roster 4 of them. So as long as you have 3 good ones, if you have 3 of the top 4, you're fine. Do you need all 4 of them? No, because no one could roster that. So because of that benefits weaker players because the likelihood of them because remember, we're stacking mostly, and weaker, less skillful players stack less, are more likely to have one-offs and uncorrelated lineups. Like, the likelihood of you being able to get perfect on that is going to be way lower. It's going to be just a shot in the dark. while with multiple positional eligibility, like, dude, I can make way more. Like on FanDuel, I look at that and I could go, I could get all the stacks that I possibly want and jam in exactly what I need so much easier as a skillful player, where I'm not stuck with a $2,100 second baseman. Like I'm playing a 4-3-1 lineup, because the only way for me to stack the Dodgers and the Yankees and the cheap pitcher is by playing, some random, Diamondbacks second baseman batting eighth type of guy in the 2,100 zone in second base. Well, with MPE, like I could make 4-4 lineups so much like way easier now.
Yeah.
And if less of the field is building 4-4 lineups, how does that not benefit me?
Sure. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. I look at it from a mathematical standpoint of just, I don't like that it's increased in orders of magnitude, the amount of combinations that you can make.
Yeah, but that benefits skill. It makes, okay. I think we're confusing what it means by harder, right?
Sure.
It makes it harder overall. Like you're saying the same thing that I'm saying. Just my approach is the difference, relative skill. You're thinking of just raw difficulty. Like, yes, it makes it more difficult on everyone, but
I'm thinking of it like a content creator and like a model builder.
Who cares about content creation and model? I'm talking about playing as a DFS
That's
player.
the difference between our thoughts right now. Is like, I agree, because I agree with you. I agree with you after you just went through that. I agree with you. And I think that's the point that Dean was making as well. That
raw difficulty, it's difficult when everything becomes more difficult for everyone. The skillful players have more of an edge, because the more difficult it gets on weaker players, they get worse and worse, and we get better and better.
Sure. Yeah. I can agree with that.
Obviously, if you're making models and building optimal lineups and running simulations, you got way more now you need a lot more computer power.
Yeah, a lot higher combinatorics. So I think that I agree with you. I see your point for sure. I don't like MPE just simply because of what we talked about earlier with NBA, where like you're going to need the top 8 best players, period, versus on FanDuel, you don't need that specifically. But I totally agree with you that from a gameplay standpoint, you're right. If less people are stacking and it makes it easier to stack, it's a good thing for you. Yeah.
Right. Bring it on. Yeah. Bring on the combinations. When do we ever say, and like take a look at showdowns, take a look at what are the tiers or whatever, all the formats that have less combinations.
Yeah.
Like the less combinations on short slates, 2-game slates. We always get into the notion of like the sharper play is finding the unique combinations. Mm-hmm. So like the more combinations that are available, the more available unique combinations are available. So when you have a 2-game slate, like it's hard not to build a good lineup. It's hard to build a unique lineup. And the differences between lineups is not going to be that dramatic. And especially when it comes to MLB, the differences between lineups is, I mean, I do look at projections, but you're playing teams. Like it's so much different from NBA, where you're playing, this guy's a value, that guy's like, we could have, I'm taking a look at our RG projections right now. I don't even know if they're at, I don't even know. These, who knows? Someone could have just jotted these down. I'm not even sure. But like looking at the best point per dollar play on the slate right now is Cedric Mullins. If he leads off against Boston for the Orioles.
Cedric frickin' Mullins is the best guy. This is going to be such a fun Thursday.
Right. Okay. I'm just saying he's projected in our stuff, batting first in Fenway against Nathan Eovaldi. He's $2,100 on DraftKings. He's the minute. He's like, come on, these prices shouldn't be this low. Obviously there's some good, like David Dahl is projected to bat second against Keller in Kansas City. And he's 2,500. These guys should be 4,000. A lot of these guys are cheap because they're facing Darvish and Glasnow, and I can't count Bumgarner as a real pitcher, so he doesn't count. But it's like Cedric Mullins at 2,100, best point per dollar play on the slate. Like from a cash game perspective, sure, okay, fine, whatever. But he could just go. It's not like NBA where it's like, oh, this guy, like Cedric Mullins on this slate probably should be 4,000. He's 2,000. Now imagine you say on an NBA, a guy's that should be 8,000 is 4,000. Like
Right.
you'd be playing like 98% of him, right?
Well, so I went over that in my recent post on the site, which is free, by the way. I tweeted about it, but I went over that the reason why MLB is the best DFS sport is because it's an event-oriented sport where like that price discrepancy on Cedric Mullins, I will not stop laughing that Cedric Mullins is the best point per dollar play. That price discrepancy, sure, he should be more expensive, but his floor is a literal zero.
Everyone's floor is zero.
Yeah, everybody's floor in baseball is a literal zero. So Cedric Mullins being the quote unquote best overall value, like if he's going to be more than 20% owned, I love everything about the slate because like this is a player that only reason why he's popular is because of the price and because of his batting order. But it's not like NBA where because he's underpriced, it means that he's a good value. He's underpriced, but it doesn't mean anything because he could have a literal zero. He can have a literal 2-point outing, and it just kills so much.
Right. He's gonna bat 4 to 5 times, and that's it.
Yeah. He's gonna bat 4 to 5 times. He's got a 250 batting average, and he hasn't hit a home run since Nam. Like,
right.
That's chalk that is so good to fade, man. Like, I am so excited for baseball.
Well, who knows? I'm just looking at. I mean, he could end up batting 8th, and then no longer. Then he's just sitting there at 2,100.
Sure, but the point of it is that like we can extend that conversation that we just had, that thought that we just had of any $2,100 player that ever bats first in the batting order on any slate in any park against any pitcher. It doesn't matter.
Right.
If they're going to be the best point per dollar play, and you look at them and you say, okay, well, this guy, he's the best point per dollar play, but he doesn't do anything for GPPs. He has a ceiling of like 4.27.
He has a ceiling of 22.59.
Does he?
He has a floor of 1.79.
I'll take the under.
Right. Well, I mean, the floor and the ceiling are like the 50.
I know, they're standard deviation. I get it.
Right.
But that point can be extended towards so many different MLB conversations, and it's the reason why baseball is such a fun DFS sport, and something that I think both Jordan and I love about DFS is that we can crank up that leverage lever now. We can focus more on playing plays that people look at as like bad plays, and it's like, dude, you can look at it as a bad play, but if they're going to be 3% owned and they have an implied total of like 4.5 and it's going to be 30% owned for a total that's like 5.2, I will take the 3% ownership and a chance to bink the slate with very, very low owned players against the players that all have the same floor of 0. And like median projections on hitters are funny. So I love baseball season for that reason. That's the main reason.
Right. And I look at the prices, see, like this is very similar to lineups, not players. I think in terms of stacks, not players. So for instance, I'll show you on the screen. Like Cedric Mullins is not what entices me. So I look at the Orioles. Who knows what their order is going to be? I mean, we're looking on Monday, so this doesn't mean anything. They haven't even finalized like the rosters or anything yet. What I'm looking for, this is vomit stacks, okay? I'm explaining what vomit stacks are, okay? The point of playing vomit stacks goes along with what you said. Any team on any day could hit 12 runs or whatever, right? And obviously they don't have equal chances, but at least some of a chance. I'm looking for stacks of 5 players that fit in multiple roster slots on DraftKings, especially, and it be under 20,000 combined. So that's the qualification of a vomit stack. If you could play 5 guys, mostly at the top of the order, from a team that has at least a 4 implied total. Basically, they're not facing an ace. They're not facing a DeGrom. They're not facing a Cole. They're not facing, because they'll naturally be low priced. And can I fit 5 of them in my lineup? See, like here with the Orioles, Cedric Mullins is 2,100, Mancini 39, Santander 35, Mountcalfer 39, Cisco 31. There's a vomit stack, but the problem here is that you have 3 outfielders, 2 first basemen, and a catcher. Like Galvis, if he bats 8th down over here, He's your second baseman shortstop. So like I'm more likely to stack with Galvis just to fill my second base short spot because do I want to fill 3 outfielders in the same stat? I don't know. So like it fills the salary requirement, but the positional. Like if Galvis was batting like 5th or 2nd or something, there you go. I'm jamming in 20% Orioles on opening day. I don't need to do anything else. They project like the point per dollar is enough that if the Orioles score 10 runs in Fenway against the Eovaldi, which why couldn't they?
Yeah.
And then I get 2 stud pitchers, I win. Right? And the stud pitchers have to be worth it. So we're taking a look in a slate that has, Bieber and who else is on this slate? I mean, the problem with the first couple of outings of the rotation is they're probably not going to pitch more than 6 innings. So you have to take that into account. But that's the whole vomit stack theory. So I'm not looking for individual batters. So for instance, if I go into the projections right now, this is the RG projections. I use the bat from Derek Carty. So, but I mean, the RG projections are fine also. And I look at the top point per dollar. I see Baltimore, Texas, Arizona, but Arizona's facing Darvish. So maybe I don't look at Arizona. I look at Minnesota. I'm just looking for the cheap guys like Jake Cave batting 6th against Woodruff. But like Corey Dickerson in Miami batting 1st against Glasnow. Do I want to do that against Glasnow? Maybe not. But San Diego's in Arizona facing Bumgarner. I don't consider Bumgarner to be a quality pitcher anymore.
Anybody who does is just in denial.
Right. Kike Hernandez, if he leads off for the Red Sox against John Means. So I just look for these cheaper guys. And then, because like Boston, if Kike Hernandez leads off for Boston, let's take a look at their lineup. As projected. I mean, obviously, you'd get that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. But I'm looking and I'm seeing, okay, well, Bogarts and Devers are expensive. Verdugo and JD Martinez are reasonable. Now, Verdugo is going to be batting lefty-lefty if he even bats in that order, in that spot. Maybe they play Dalbec. Maybe they move Dalbec up in the order or something. Who knows? So who knows how they're going to do it? But I take a look at this, and this is not a vomit stack. Even though Kike Hernandez is second base eligible and possibly leading off against John Means in Boston, makes him a fine like if you want to use him as a one-off cash play type of thing, I think that's perfectly fine. Just because you're trying to get more plate appearances in cash games. But from a stacking perspective, this is not really that cheap of a stack because it's very unlikely that a team's going to put up 10 plus runs and their main hitters are 0 for 5. So it's very rare that, I may not stack with Xander and Devers both, but at least one of them. Right? It's going to be, why am I going to play Hernandez, Verdugo, JD Martinez, Hunter Renfroe, Marwin Gonzalez, and not leave the heart of their order? Like it makes most likely, if that team does well, the good hitters do well also. But then I take a look at, let's see, we saw before with David Dahl, Texas. So there was a cheap hitter. Okay. We look at their order and look how cheap this order is. They're playing against Brad Keller, who I never mind as a pitcher. As an SP2, I'm gonna say on DraftKings, Brad Keller could be a little bit chalky.
Against Texas,
against Texas as a cheap pitcher. Okay, so if he's gonna be 20% owned, I love stacking against SP2s, right?
Yeah, that sounds like money.
Right, and then look at the prices. If this is the order, I mean, obviously we're just projecting 1 to 9 here. Kiner Falefa leading off. This says how bad the Rangers are. Okay, if Isaiah Kiner Falefa is leading off, but I get a shortstop 3,500, David Dahl 2,500 in the outfield, Gallo, Nate Lowe, first baseman, and Nick Solak. Or Odor, even. One of the two. Second base. I mean, I'm able to fill 2 middle infield spots, a first base and 2 outfield spots, and look at the combined price. The combined price is, I mean, it's way under 20K.
Sounds like I'm stacking the Rangers.
Right. So and then you get leverage if Keller's ends up coming in 20 to 25% owned. Like I'm describing how I pick my team. Like That's it.
Yep.
Now people are gonna, well, what's his ISO? What's his? What do I need? I just need to know. Give me the normal projections. Give me the price. Give me the ownership, and that I'm done. And then I'm picking teams. So now, since Texas is the road team, I don't mind playing the bottom of their order.
No, because they get an extra at bat.
Right, because they'll guaranteed ninth inning at bats. This is a more or less, a more likely or less likely, just like in DFS. Everything should be more likely and less likely, not always and never. 7, 8, and 9 for the home team, I try to stay away from. 7, 8, or 9. I mean, you don't typically, they're the worst hitters anyway, and their plate experience expectation is lower because they're lower in the order. Doesn't mean I don't play them. Like I said in the instance before with Galvis, it's because like on Baltimore, like just from a positional standpoint, like number one, they're the road team, so I don't mind the 8th hitter in the lineup. But do I want to take up like 3 outfield spots with the Orioles? Probably not. So Galvis bats 8th, so I'm going to do something maybe more like Galvis batting 8th and then play Mullins, Mancini, Santander, and Cisco.
Try to maintain that correlation. Yeah.
Right, and it's enough. It's not the 8th hitter still correlates with the other hitters in the lineup and everything. You know, the gaps don't matter as much. But then we take a look at Texas, and it's like, this is easy. I mean, I could just basically take all the lefties, and like I have no problem. And they're there. And if Jose Trevino is batting 8th, he's 2,900. And this is where you get into if you listen to the morning grind, or any when I'm on Grinders Live, and people are like, what are you doing at catcher? It's like whoever I'm stacking, I'm playing unless I'm playing some one-off like Real Muto, you know, one of the Grandal, one of the actual good catchers. To me, on DraftKings, obviously on FanDuel, you don't have to play catcher. But on DraftKings, I'm more likely to I don't care where the spot in the order is. I don't care what the name is. I don't care.
It does not matter.
If they're cheap, as long as they're like under 3,500 and just like, I'm just playing I guess if I'm stacking the Pirate Jacob Stallings, here you come, right? It's whatever it is. I don't concern myself that much because if I'm going to punt anywhere,
it's going to be catcher.
Right. And why not make it more correlated than punting? Right. Oh, I'm going to play Jose Trevino in a lineup with my Orioles stack. Like, why not? Why aren't you just playing Francisco in that spot? Like,
it's the same thing in NFL. Any slate that doesn't have an elite tight end on it, just correlate it with your quarterback. Like instead of like trying to get a touchdown prop on tight end that probably sucks, just correlate it with your quarterback. Same thing with catcher. Just correlate it with the rest of your stack and just not even worry about it. And most of the time, when you're going to be paying up at catcher anyway, is when you have like on the 5th day of the rotation, when Julio frickin' Teheran ends up chalk every single time because he's not the worst pitcher, but he's also terrible, but he's priced at like $9K. Like you're going to be paying down a pitcher that day anyway. So you might have the money to get up to catcher and not have to worry about it with your stack. But for the most part, just correlate it. Correlation is stronger than ISO and slug and whatever. Like just correlate it.
Jacob Calloway asks, are you less likely to use one-offs from popular stacks, or are you more so weighting strongest standalone ability in your lineups that are built with under-owned stacks? Now there are certain players that I don't mind. If the Dodgers are chalky and I got 6,000 left in my lineup, like I'm playing Mookie Betts. It does to me, those type of players, Mike Trout, I don't care how old the Angels, like I don't mind. But other than that, like if the stack is chalky, if that guy does well, most likely the team has done well. Mm-hmm. So like I'm not a big fan. Like for instance, in the Cedric Mullins example, Cedric Mullins sucks. Okay, right?
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah.
If he ends up being 22% owned as a one-off outfielder, and the Orioles are not a team that's stacked. Like we may have these. Cedric Mullins is 22% owned, and then the stack is 1% owned, right? Because everyone's playing the leadoff $2,100 guy, but no one's playing Mancini or any of the other guys in the line. Then I don't mind playing Mullins in my stack, but I'm not going to play him as a one-off because it makes no sense. I'm not going to play a one-off in a chalk stack. If Freddie Freeman at first base, if the Braves are chalky and everyone on the Braves is 15 to 18% owned and Freddie Freeman is 24% owned, to me, I'm more likely to just fade the Braves than play any of them as a one-off, assuming that the only way any of them hit a ceiling is if, multiple of them do well enough. There are obviously instances where bottom of the orders do well, where it's like Freddie Freeman has 2 home runs, but like Ozuna is sitting there with nothing. I mean, like, because the bottom of the order got on base, and then Freddie Freeman just like hit him in. Like, yeah, there are those instances, but I'm less likely. I'm not saying never. I'm just saying less likely. But those situations with the leadoff hitter, when Tim LaCastro or something, we get these 2K leadoff hitters, Ramel Tapia, when he comes, he's batting first, 2,800, and he's in Coors playing for the Rockies, and it's like, dude, I want in GPP, in cash games, play them all you want. I mean, you play them in cash games, but in GPPs, to me, it makes no sense. The relative value is not worth it in an event-driven sport. Like, if you went by the rule, James, do you think this if you had a rule? I'm not saying you should do this, but if you had a blunt tool on a 10+ game slate, should you just, if any batters projected to be more than 20% owned, if you just X them out and then built your lineups, do you think that would almost always be a plus EV decision?
Directly from the article that I just wrote. This is a quote. The popular plays are generally popular for a reason, and you're either grossly underpriced or necessary to build competitive lineups. If you build a lineup with nobody over 20% owned, this is talking about NBA. If you build a lineup with nobody over 20% owned, it's pretty unlikely that you built a lineup that's competitive over a long sample. But in MLB DFS, you can have an entire roster under 10% and it be competitive so long as it's built correctly. In fact, I would say that lineups built entirely under a 20% threshold are more likely to find success long-term than those over the 20% mark. But that's a conversation for another time. Directly from the article that I just wrote.
Right. On a normal size slate. We're not talking about a 4-game slate.
Right. Yeah. On a normal size slate.
On a 10, 11, 12-game slate, if Mike Trout is 36% owned, I'm less it's quite likely I'm playing 100 lineups and playing literally none of them.
And the reason for that is because the events that happen in games are significantly, like, the probability of a home run in any given game by any given player is way less than 36% on Mike Trout. It's way less.
Even for Mike Trout, it's less.
Even for Mike Trout. Yeah.
Right.
The best hitters in the league have a non-binomial distribution percentile chance of 7% to hit a home run in any given game. 7%. When you combine that with a pitcher that is very bad, like if they're facing James Shields, that goes up into like the mid 14 to 16% or something like that. But that's 14 to 16% chance that they're going to hit a home run. The best hitters in the league. We're talking like Cody Bellinger, Mike Trout, Giancarlo Stanton, whatever. So anything over 20% owned in MLB, like, I'm very, very, very wary to utilize hitters that are over 20%. Pitchers, different conversation, but hitters, if they're over 20% owned, I'm very, very wary to utilize them, just because you lose all of the plus EV of taking a hitter as soon as they hit that 20% mark. They don't have significantly more than a 25% chance to make value, especially at the price you have to pay for them.
What happens? Okay, what happens if Mike Trout is whoops, 3,000? They did it by accident on DraftKings. Mike Trout is straight. Ronald Acuna, whoops, 3,000.
That's
they're going to end up being, on an 11-game slate, they'll be like 45% down. And you know what I would say? I'd still say Xing them out is probably to win a large field GPP.
Yep.
I'd still X them out.
That's even better. Like if Mike Trout is going to be like 3,000 on any given slate, I know that he's going to be 65. Every single tout service on the planet will be talking about Mike Trout at 3K.
Right, but he's still only going to get 5 at bat. He's going to have 4 or 5 at bats.
Right.
He could easily just get 2 walks and a run.
Right. Even if at that price he gets a walk and a stolen base and a run, that's like 9 points.
he can still get beat badly by other 3K outfielders. He can still get
Cedric
beat
Mullins
badly.
could beat him, right?
Exactly. Because baseball is hilarious. It's all randomness and it's all variance and it's beautiful. So yeah, anything over 20%, I get very, very wary to roster anybody over 20%.
Doesn't mean you don't. Doesn't mean you can't.
Right. It just means I have to think more about it. I have to really weigh that decision more. And like, if I have a stack of like, say I stack the Rangers, you know, they're all 1% owned on opening day, then I'm a little bit more likely to take on a popular hitter, like because I'm going to have the money for Mike Trout, right? And if Mike Trout's going to be 25% owned, but I have all 1% owned hitters around him, and I'm able to afford the 2 stud pitchers, whereas other people are playing an SP2 that is $7,000, maybe I'm more likely to take that 25-30% owned player because like I already have the leverage that I need for large field tournaments. I don't have to worry about the leverage anymore. And I'm just trying to like fill out upside. So maybe I end up doing that. But if Mike Trout's going to be 30% owned on that slate, and I have all these 1% owned hitters, but then there's going to be Cody Bellinger playing outfield at the same price, and he's going to be like 10% owned. And I'm not talking about opening day because the Dodgers playing Coors opening day. So this probably flipped. But my point is that if there's a very popular, expensive hitter that's going to be 30% owned, and then a hitter with the same upside that's going to be 10% owned, I probably just want the hitter that's going to be 10% owned because why wouldn't I? Like, I don't
take a look at opening day. You have Acuna against Nola, Betts and Bellinger against Marquez, Tatis and Machado against Bumgarner, Seager against Marquez, Yelich against Maeda, Story against Kershaw, Bryce Harper against Fried, Real Muto against 5,500 for Real Muto. Okay. But you take a look at some of these. I mean, like, yeah, if I have $6,000 left in my vomit stack, like, why wouldn't I play Betts or Bellinger in Colorado against German Marquez? Like, but do I play Betts or Bellinger? Like, who cares, right? If it's a utility spot and I have 5,900, that doesn't mean I have to play Betts. If I want to play Tatis in a utility because he's shortstop eligible, or Machado, or against Bumgarner, yeah, I have no problem playing anyone against Madison Bumgarner in 2021. So like, if Betts, if let's say Marquez is against Bellinger because he's lefty against Marquez because people like the reverse the platoon splits, Bellinger's on an 11-game slate is like 32% owned, and Betts is going to be 24% owned, and Tatis is going to be 20% owned, and Machado is going to be 17% owned. Like, dude, like the differences between these guys are like nothing. Like look at even the projections are barely that different from each other. So even with you have 5,800 left, and the best raw points is Bellinger, and he's going to be 32% owned. And even if you have a 1% owned stack, it's still probably even better to just take Machado in that spot. I mean, just like, because the projection difference is practically nothing. So like the whole concept of DFS is can you get more relative points than your opponents? And if 2 guys in your model are projected the same and one is less owned, there's no instance where the less owned player is not the plus EV move. There's literally no instance. If you tell me that the range of outcomes of 2 players is exactly the same, they're exactly the same price, and one's going to be half as owned as the other, you should be picking the lowest owned one 100% of the time. So even though like you have the raw, I could afford Bellinger, I could play Bellinger or Machado or something, and they're both projected like dude, whoever's the low, like, but I already have a 1% owned, so leverage doesn't matter to that extent. Like, the 1% owned stack doesn't have to have every player in that stack do well.
Right.
They're 1% owned. If 3 out of the 5, if 3 out of the 5 guys have home runs, and the 4th guy has a good 15-point game with some runs and a stolen base, the 5th guy could possibly have 0 points. And you could win a large field GPP because the other 4 are so low owned. And then if you end up with Bellinger in that scenario where he's 32% owned, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts and Like you just wiped out a third of the field. I mean, like you wiped out a third of the field right there. So now that the winning score is going to be so much lower, which means your 1% stack doesn't have to put up 15 runs. They can put up 9 runs and you win the slate. I mean, that's the whole. This is the vomit stack theory of DFS or whatever. I mean, this is because a lot of people come to me, James, and they say, "How are you playing the Tigers? How are you playing the Pirates? How are you playing these Marlins? How are you playing the Orioles? These garbage teams, the Mariners?" And like, you really think they're going to put up 15 runs? I go, no. All I need to do is have them put up 9 runs and have the chalk fail.
Yep. That's it.
How often are they going to put up 9 runs today? Oh, okay, a little bit easier than 50. Yeah, the Dodgers look like they can put up 15 runs every game, but if they're going to be 15%, 20% owned every game, like I'm just that. Or people go to Coors. I gotta stack Coors. It's like, okay, I'll play the Tigers. They go, really? You think the Tigers going to outscore Coors? And I go, no. All they need to do is score 8 runs. While Coors Field is a 3-1 ball game. That's it. That's all.
Well, and the other big part about that is like you don't need it to happen very often either, right?
No.
I mean, you need it to happen once, maybe twice in an entire season.
Entire season. That's right.
So and that kind of speaks to the long-term idea of what DFS is and baseball especially, because like you're dealing with variance all season. There is not a single slate that you're not going to get that warning track fly out that's just going to tilt you beyond belief. But it's so long as you continue to stick to that process of leverage and understanding of trying to play against the field in baseball, this is the best sport to do it because you really only need it to work once or twice. And you have better chances of taking down those GPPs because if Coors fails and Coors is taking up 40% of the field, and I do think that we're going to see more condensed ownership this year because we saw a lot of condensed ownership in NFL. We saw a lot more condensed ownership in NBA. I think we see a lot more condensed ownership in MLB as well. If Coors fails and wipes out 40% of the field, like you have already opened the gates if you avoided Coors. Like you just need a team that puts up 8 runs and has your main guys, 3 out of your 5 main guys do really, really well. And you're in contention. Like you're competitive to take down that GPP.
Right. And have 2 pitchers that don't get blown up.
Right. Yep.
Or 1 pitcher or whoever.
Well, actually, yeah. And even if you're playing on DraftKings, 2 years ago, I took down a tournament with a pitcher that had negative like 5 points or something. It was like Chris Archer. And of course, it was Chris Archer that had negative 5 points. But it was like Chris Archer had negative 5 points, but I had all the Angels at like 4% ownership or something in the Trop. And they put up like 12 runs or something. And it didn't matter that I had negative points from my pitcher. And that's why you do it that way.
I believe 2 years ago, there was someone that won the large field GPP on FanDuel with a -1 from their pitcher on a single pitcher site.
Yeah. It's the beauty of baseball, dude. Like it's the beauty of MLB. It's the best DFS sport.
For GPPs.
That's all I care about. It's best.
For cash games, it could be very frustrating.
Yeah, well, for cash, it sucks because it's all variance. And yeah, that sounds terrible. But
right.
Like,
your 2v2 is like is your guy, the shot goes all the way to the wall, and your opponent's guy hits 3 home runs, and you're like, how am I supposed to?
Yeah.
How was I supposed to know that? Like, how would you don't? You literally don't.
Right.
Right. Or yeah, on DraftKings, you have 2 pitchers, and it's like, okay, here's the 2v2, and it's like, are you going to play this SB2 or that SB2? Well, the difference could be 30-point difference, right?
But
or
the
Joe Musgrove,
could be a 3-point difference.
right? Musgrove it's like, okay, do I play Brad Keller or Joe Musgrove? And it's like Keller goes out and strikes out 8 guys in 7 innings with giving up 1 run and no walks, and Musgrove within an inning and a third has already given up 9 runs, and you're sitting there going, okay, I guess I lost today in cash. I guess.
Yep. Move on to the next one.
-12 versus 26 is going to work out, right? Yep. You're fine with that in GPP. You could live with that in GPP. Just it's like, okay, like the 2 guys were projected exactly the same, and their differences were 30 points apart from each other.
Yeah. On to the next one, man. GG next.
But all of this is discussed, like I said, like even though we were talking about NBA for the past 3 months, like the theory of DFS, the 15-hour audio masterclass covers everything. So It's the concepts of how to play DFS, regardless of the sport. So if you're getting into MLB, right? Because I'm getting it. I actually had fun on the pregame show this morning talking about DFS. A lot of times in the past 2 weeks, I feel like basketball slate. What the hell's going to happen? We already have Jaylen Brown who's out today.
I was gonna say that it's already started, man. It's 11-game slate. What team is not going to play today? Who knows? I don't care because I'm not going to play it.
Right. But go to theoryofdfs.com, me and James. How to think like a professional DFS player. We're just structured education in your pocket. All these concepts that we talk about are in there. And Craig Tao asks, am I going to do my spreadsheet for cash in MLB? Yes. That will be using the BAT projections. Now, what I mentioned before is that I'm done with NBA. Like today, I'm telling you right now, I'm not playing NBA tonight. So you won't see an entry in the if I do happen to play, it'll be in there. But don't expect to see if this ends the 20 yesterday, that's the end. I mean, this is the final results for the season as of now. Now I also have a tab here for MLB. You see, it's not even filled out, right? I'm waiting. I'll be doing MLB though. So that'll be fine. MLB I don't mind doing because nothing changes enough that it's going to matter. So
unless pitcher gets scratched, that's
right, unless a pitcher gets scratched or the batting order change to some extent may affect it a little, but not as much as NBA, which we were both really sick of.
Yeah.
Craig Toe even says, even though you said the cash games have so much variance, understand that I don't play cash games. I invest in cash contests, which means on a given day, the variance in a given day in baseball is dramatic. Is on a given day, I'm going to be playing 160 slates. So it's the same like we said about long term. Like when I play my vomit stacks, I know that 95% of the time they fail. I'm just hoping to make enough money the 5% of the time that they don't fail, that I win first place enough and I have a ton of money at the end of the season. So everything is judged by the end of the season. So yes, it's a high variance sport, which means that you shouldn't be taking day-to-day results so dramatically. That's why you also shouldn't be playing, I'm going to play 20+% of my bankroll a day. Not in baseball.
3%, homie. 3%.
Right. It's high variance. So you have to judge your results over the course of a season. So I don't mind playing cash games over the course of a season. But on a given day, that's why I said it's frustrating for cash games because you pick the wrong SB2 that are projected. So the SB2 versus outfield punt, kind of 2v2 or something like that, or the catcher, right? Those types of 2v, that's going to make or break you in cash. And they're all projected the difference in the projection is nothing. And you're like, okay, well, one is 0.2 higher than the other. And in baseball, 0.2, that's nothing. That's nothing. It's not like basketball. It's nothing. So it's like whichever side you're on, and that's the one that wins, and then you move on to the next day. You're hoping at the end of the season, you have like a 58+% win rate, and you make some money over the course of the season. But yes, cash games can be very frustrating in MLB. Okie doke. Now finally we're coming to the end of the show and people are asking questions. How much do you factor in weather, wind, rain, whatever the bat tells me?
Yeah, weather. There are some parks that are more affected by weather. At Wrigley, if wind is blowing out 20 miles per hour, that's notable. That's something that you should care about. For the most part, though, a lot of the stadiums are designed to deal with weather they get. 14 mile per hour wind out at the Giant Stadium doesn't actually matter that much because the park is designed to be against that. But most of the time, you're not going to worry too much about weather. Most of the time,
if it's going to be a rain out.
Right. Or if it's going to be a rain out, you do have to worry about that. But that kind of stuff, even that last year, that was a frustrating thing with the Nationals because the Nationals will make the worst decision possible when it comes
rain
to
out, sunny day, never rains. Who cares?
So dumb. So you do have to worry about a little bit about that. But when you're making those decisions from a macro point of view, like you're making that decision of like, okay, I know there's rain problems with Washington. I know there's rain problems with the Brewers, right? You're looking at those games overall and saying, okay, those are some worrisome spots. But
worrisome spots for postponement.
Yeah, for postponement.
Right.
Those are the things you should worry more about, or 20 plus mile per hour wind. You can care about that depending on whether it's in or out, depending on the park. But it's very, very contextual and it's very situational. So I really only worry about postponed stuff. And even then, if it's kind of sketchy and people are going to be jumping off a really good team because of the weather, I might take a shot there. Just because I think that there's going to be an ownership edge on, the Brewers who can have good games. They have Yelich, they have Hura, they have some pretty good bats. If they're going to end up, if they were going to be popular, like 15+% owned, and the game looks like it might get rained out and it's a little bit later, people are going to get off that game. And there's probably a little bit of an ownership edge there. So it's all contextual, but mostly pay attention to postponement chances. Outside of that, like projections we'll take into account.
Yep. And we'll be talking about that. It'll be MLB Thursday onward. And we're going to get to the point. It's going to be mid-August, right? We're going to be saying,
bring on NFL.
Bring on NFL. This is getting not because of shenanigans. That shenanigans in baseball don't happen until September.
Right.
And then you start going, I'm sick of this now. It's more of the fact that it's a grind. Like MLB, it just becomes a grind.
It is a grind.
Like the same order, the same day. It feels like Groundhog Day. You're repeating the same 5 days over and over again. Kind of, and then they get the sites that are like, oh, they forgot to price this team correctly, and then they're chalk and they fail, and then everyone bitches on Twitter. The
worst thing is anytime that the Orioles are facing the Yankees. 5 days of just like, I don't want to deal with Gleyber Torres.
Oh, well, we get the BVP truthers.
Yeah. Well, we get the BVP truthers, and we also get like
the 2 years smashers, ago. The Orioles, he always hits this team.
The Orioles were a walking Coors 2 years ago. And any time that they faced the Yankees, it was just another Coors slate. So what we would have, and now I'm tilting about MLB already, what we would have is the Yankees would be in Coors, and then Coors would be in Coors, and then you have to avoid 2 different Coors because you're dealing with the freaking Orioles pitching staff. That was the worst. But that happens later on in the season. Like every team has hope for a while, and then a team is just a basement, and now they're a walking Coors. So that gets a little bit annoying in the middle of the season, but we're going to be happy for the next month, Jordan. We're going to be having a good time for the next month because we're done with basketball and we're on to baseball.
I'm going to make my lineups with those little cocktails with the umbrellas in it. Because I feel like you're on vacation. Lineups come out and I get to actually build lineups and it's 7. I could watch the games and not care about switching my teams because half a team sits for no apparent reason. This is brilliant.
Yeah.
This sport that they made up, this baseball. This is a pretty good sport. Basketball, they should send back to the manufacturer and change it up again.
Totally agree.
So people can find you at paydirt_DFS. And if people want to sign up for your model, obviously that's available, right?
Yeah. So you can find me at paydirt_DFS. I'm going to retweet a link to my most recent article. It's a total MLB breakdown. Talks about pretty much anything that you need to know about MLB DFS. If you're a beginner or if you just want to read through some funny writing, I'm a pretty funny guy. So I will link that. You can find all of my work over at paydirt.ghost.io. I still have
domain name. You still haven't gotten that.
Still haven't gotten it. I'm working on MLB. Okay, let me work. I did just upload the baseball models as well. So last year they were still in Excel sheets, and this year they are actually in web applications. So it looks a lot cleaner and just getting ready for the season. $30 a month for every single sport under the sun, and you can find me there.
And you can find me on Twitter at blenderhd. Wish me a happy birthday. Buy the course. Buy theory at dfs.com. If you want to get me a birthday present, just give me money.
There you go.
Just PayPal me money. Just take my head-to-heads and just fill out an empty lineup. Like that's the best way. It's like I don't need gifts. I just need money. And I don't care if I have, and I already have money. I could always have more money. So if you want to send me money for my birthday, that's perfectly fine with me. I don't mind. But we'll be tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm gonna have to talk about basketball. And then Thursday opening, then we're done. Are people going to be upset? I don't know. Let me know. If more people, I mean, obviously we could still talk about NBA. It's just, we could still review some lineups. We could still do that. But it's up to the YouTube people. So YouTube people, hit that thumbs up on the way out the door. Keep my apple juice cold. And so it'll be up to you guys. So if we talk more about MLB, then that's what the YouTube chat wants. You have to show up live, right? Because I'm here every weekday, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, for the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders.com.